Welcome to Halifax County Young Life's virtual banquet. I'm so glad that you chose to join us today. We have the honor to share with you some exciting news of what the Lord is doing in Halifax County. Lives that He's changing, teenagers He's reaching, with people in the community coming together, being trained and equipped and sent out to Halifax County Middle School and Halifax County High School and all through the county, reaching and discipling teenagers for His gospel. Thank you for joining us. I hope you laugh and have a great time today.
It all started with a prayer and a man who listened intently to the Lord. Jim Rayburn knew Jesus was the answer to every heart's longing, and his singular vision was to provide kids with a proper introduction to the Savior. His dream took flight in 1939 in the small town of Gainesville, Texas, and by 1941, the Young Life campaign was born. Starting with 5 staff and a board of directors, the work of reaching kids with the gospel slowly began to spread around the country. Of course, many lessons would be learned. The art of going to kids on their turf to build bridges of friendship and trust. The art of inviting them into the adventure only a relationship with Jesus can offer. The art of taking kids to a place made just for them, where they can experience the greatest week of their lives. The art of helping them grow in their faith through campaigners, service, and life-on-life discipleship. The art of enlisting local volunteer leaders and committee to work alongside staff in the work. The vision would not be confined to the borders of the U.S., however, and by 1953, Young Life expanded into Canada and France. The work started in suburban high schools, but the vision grew to include reaching every kid. Every city and country, middle school through college, military, teen moms, and kids with special needs. Today, Young Life is indeed reaching a world of kids, with a strong presence in every state in the U.S. and nearly 100 countries. More kids are laughing and singing in club than ever before. More kids are hanging out with mentors. More kids are beaming as they arrive at camp. More kids are encountering God's Word. More kids are discovering there's a greater plan for their lives. And it all started with a prayer. And today, more than 8 decades later, it continues with another.
Hi, my name is Will Van Opstel, and I'm a junior at Halifax County High School. I first got into Young Life about 2 years ago when some of my friends invited me to Young Life Club. I was a little skeptical about going that night, and evidently I did, but when I got there, it was just, I had the most amazing time. Everybody was so animated and so excited, and it was just like a huge party, and there was music and songs, and we all sang along and danced and had games. And then at the end of the Young Life Club, we had our club talk, which was the time when the leaders came out and, they talked about the gospel and about Jesus. Now, I come from a Christian family who we go to church, but I had never really had that intimate relationship with Jesus. And so I didn't really fully understand about everything that He had done for us and about everything that just He had done. And so I continued to go to club for a few weeks until I was invited to campaigners. And when I went to Young Life campaigners, that's when we started to go, deeper into the gospel and into the Bible, and to explore about everything that Jesus had done and about why we are here and what we are doing. And I really started to think more about Jesus and the Lord and about everything that was revolving around me. Now, about a year ago, I was going through some tough time, especially through school and with friends, and I just wasn't really feeling that connection anymore. And I was just really down on myself, and my grades were dropping, and it was almost like a sickness that I was imposing on myself. And Matt, my Young Life leader, he came by my house one day, and he picked me up, and we just talked, and he listened, and that was all I needed, just to let him know everything that was going on. And he listened, and he helped give me advice on what I should do and about what was happening, and it just made me feel so much better. And just having that person there to listen to me and to just understand me was just amazing, because he was able to show me, this whole time you've had Jesus. He is there for you. He will listen to you. If you ever have any troubles with anything, just tell him, pour yourself out to him. And that just really, I started to understand that more. And so a few months ago, me and my Young Life leader, Matt, we went to this Young Life camp called Wildridge. And there, it was like a discipleship camp that I was able to really connect more with the Lord through Matt. And he was able to show me more into God's creation and about why we can experience everything that we do. And while there we were able to really go through nature. We went whitewater rafting, we went kayaking, we went hiking, and to just fully connect with God's creation. And every night we had absolutely delicious food. It was way better than I expected when going to the camp. But some of the people there, they shared their life stories. And when they did, I felt like I was able to connect with some of them and just understand where they were coming from because of things that I have experienced myself, and about the doubt and anything that I had that was separating me from the Lord and from Jesus. Now, throughout all of this time, I've had ups and downs where I've just questioned everything. And Young Life has always just been there for me, and the people there, I've made some amazing friends through Young Life who have been super supportive, and just especially my Young Life leader, Matt, he has just been incredibly supportive of me and of everyone in Young Life. Young Life is a place that introduced me to Jesus and continues to help me grow in my faith. I would love it if you could support us by either praying, volunteering, or even financially, as it changes lives. It changed my life, and I want it to be able to change other teenagers' lives too. Thank you.
There's this common conversation that happens between kids and their parents. It's September, the leaves are falling, and every kid in the universe is excited about one thing: Friday night football. The teenager finishes dinner at home and is already halfway out the door when he turns around and shouts, "Mom, I'm going to my Young Life leader's house after the game." Not so fast, mister. Explaining Young Life isn't easy. The only thing harder than explaining Young Life is explaining Young Life to worried parents. How worried? Kitchen table conversation worried. The hardest part to explain for the kid isn't the Young Life events or the Young Life camps. It's the relationship with these guys. Who are these people, and why do they spend all their time with high schoolers and middle schoolers? What's a Young Life leader? It's Monday. The leader is supposed to get up at 5:45 a.m. They end up getting up at 5:54, so no time to shower. They need to be at a school that they didn't graduate from in 20 minutes to pass out donuts. Luckily, they can drive to this school in their sleep because they've spent every Monday for months doing the same exact thing, which is why they threw away the donut holes and started using the whole thing, no pun intended. Even though no one wanted donuts and they burned through half a tank of gas, they consider the morning a success. Another quarter tank of gas later, and they are home just on time for their 8 a.m. psychology lecture. Yeah, psychology lecture. College isn't going to finish itself. Classes drag, but once they're finished, it's back up to the school that they didn't graduate from. It's campaigners tonight, which is pretty much just a Bible study for people that wouldn't usually come to one. Moms are happy everywhere that their child's NIV is no longer collecting dust.
Campaigners is a place where people can be real. It's a place where people are free to ask the questions that they've always been thinking and find out those answers.
Right before they sleep, they briefly recall all the new names that they had learned that day at the school that they didn't Alright, you get it. Tuesday. Sun rises. Tuesday is an almost identical day to Monday, minus the donuts and plus a basketball game. They see that student again. They laugh at one of your jokes. Let's go! On their way back home, they stop by the local sports bar and ask about fundraising opportunities. The leader needs to raise a lot of money and not a lot of time if they want all the students to go to Young Life Camp. What's Young Life Camp? It's the best week of your life, but we really don't have time to talk about that right now. Wednesday. Club Day. Young Life's party with a purpose. The leader has been rehearsing their lines for weeks for a silly skit that may or may not be funny. Is Salt Bae still funny? Anyways, club isn't just some loud event that starts at 8:08. It's a loud event that breaks down walls. It just happens to be at a goofy time.
Young Life Club's weird.
Play a ton of games, listen to music, dance, talk at the end about Jesus.
That one student came and had the best time while hearing about a God who loved them. No, seriously, is Salt Bae still funny, or have we moved on? Fast forward to the weekend. No one wants to see more lectures and car rides. We get it, you're in college, you do a lot of stuff. The leader has now spent a total of 5 hours and a tank and a half of gas of going to and from the school that they lead at.
I fill up my gas tank every single time I'm in Finneytown.
It's a quiet Sunday afternoon, the perfect time to catch up on schoolwork. Then the phone rings. It's from an unknown number, which usually means don't pick up, but for some reason, they do. It's that student. They ask to get lunch. Suddenly, homework isn't important. I'm on my way. The donuts, the basketball games, they're good things. In fact, they're great. But they're meaningless if they don't lead to something bigger. This is the heartbeat of Young Life, and it always has been. The something doesn't have to be sensational. It doesn't have to be spectacle. It doesn't have to be club, campaigners, or even Young Life Camp. The walls are already down, the teenager is already won, and the stage is already set for something. It's this: to introduce teenagers to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. It looks like this. It's not just because they care, but it's because they've been transformed by God's love and feel compelled to share that in the best way they know how. What's a Young Life leader? They're people, just like you and I. But what does a Young Life leader do? They care. And it looks a lot like showing up, one day at a time.
I have the privilege of thanking some people today. The first group is our adult committee. I always say that the committee is the backbone of what Young Life can do in Halifax County. The committee consists of loving, Christ-following adults in our community who come together to pray, support our staff and volunteers, remove obstacles so that they can go and do ministry in the area. And they also network and build relationships in our community so that Young Life can thrive and continue through the years. The second group is our volunteer leaders. They consist of college students, teachers, and adults in the community who come together 2 to 3 days a week to love on kids, to get closer with Jesus together so that they can be equipped and trained and sent out to go to kids' houses, to go on their turf, meet them where they are, love them, earn the right to be heard so that when they share Jesus with them and they invite them into a relationship with Him, these kids respect and love these leaders to make a decision that they feel is right, that they believe is true to them. And the leaders, no matter the response, get to love them and continue living life with them. That's one thing that I love about Young Life, is that we get to live life and be true and continue these relationships when the kids go from middle school to high school, and even after high school. You're going to hear some more stories of people in the community who have been impacted by Young Life, by either being involved or being pursued by leaders in the middle school or high school.
Hey, this is Cole McKinney, and I'm a volunteer leader for Young Life in Halifax County. Some of the reasons that I think that Young Life is important for the community is because the church is important for the community. I don't think I'm alone here in thinking that a more populated church is a good thing. Of course it's a good thing. The more disciples, the more hands and feet that we have on this earth to make an impact for Christ, the better. And the youth are just in places that the adults are not going to be. I mean, they're in our schools more than we are. They're among all their friends and peers way more than we are. So our hope is that the young people would make an impact for Christ in these areas. And God will use them in this way. So through us as leaders, just acting as the church, acting as God's disciples and making disciples of the youth, they therefore make disciples of the people that they are around and that they influence, and the church grows. From what I read in Scripture, if people are living for Christ, and He still has us here, and He still has this call for us to go and to make disciples, then God is going to use us to make disciples. And through the growing of the church, we have a better community. We just do. We have more people loving one another. We have more sacrificial, selfless serving. We just have more love and care and kindness in general. And that nobody loves like God ultimately, but then secondly, the world can't love like the church because we have God working through us. We have commands written on our hearts, and He guides us and leads us in the way. So that is why Young Life is important. It's important to God because He calls us to make disciples. It's important for the youth, for their salvation and their growth in Christ. And it's important for the community because they see the works of God in the people of God. So may we be the hands and feet of God to grow the church so that more people will see evidence of the kingdom. I pray that you volunteer, that you get involved in some way, and don't think your prayers are just prayers. Prayers make a huge impact for the kingdom. God moves when we pray. Not that His will changes because of our prayers, but that our prayers align with His will. He says if we ask according to His will, He will give these things. So pray for Young Life, pray for the community, and pray for the youth that God is going to impact in the near future. Thank you.
My name is Susanna Watts. I'm a senior at Halifax County High School, and I'm going to share with you why I think Young Life is important to me. I got invited to Young Life my sophomore year of high school, and it was not what I expected it to be at all. I expected it to be like the normal youth group, maybe play a few games and then have a lesson at the end. But that's not what Young Life is. I came and it was like screaming, dancing, crazy everywhere, just like what a normal teenager would like. It's important to me because it has helped me grow in my relationship with Christ, and it's helped me to be a disciple for Christ, and I feel so welcomed and loved by the people there. I've made many friends throughout Young Life. This fall, I plan on attending Liberty University and majoring in youth ministry and Christian leadership, and hopefully one day be a Young Life leader. Thank you for supporting Young Life.
Good evening, I'm Jane Watson. I'm here this evening to tell you about Young Life, how has it impacted our family, and why I think it's good for the community here in Halifax County. My daughter Susanna has been attending Young Life for about 3 years now, and she has loved it. She loves all the activities they do, singing, dancing, playing games. Matt really mixes it up for them and makes it a good time, all while learning about Christ. So far, she has attended 2 fall weekends, 1 summer camp, and now is regularly attending campaigners and has been doing so for about 2 years now. During these 3 years that Susanna's been attending Young Life, I've seen her relationship with Christ grow in a tremendous way. I'm thankful for Matt, Rich, and the other leaders and their devotion and dedication to Young Life and their mission to reach out to the youth about Christ and to help them grow in their faith. I believe this is a great organization for our community because it gives our kids more opportunities not only to be ministered to, but also to serve others, be loved by others, and to love others. I have really enjoyed hosting campaigners here at my house since earlier this fall. I have also seen my relationship with Christ grow as well. It is my hope that you will financially support Young Life as Mike and I have done for the past 2 years. Young Life needs our support, and our community needs an organization such as Young Life as an outreach to our youth.
The reason I got involved in Young Life over 10 years ago now was because right next door to our church building is the Halifax County Middle School. And I volunteered over at the middle school with a ministry to the teens for 5 or 6 years while my kids were going through the school. And during that time, I realized something. I realized I don't know how to reach these kids. Our church and our churches in the county are pretty good at reaching churched kids, kids that grew up going to church with their folks. But I just realized that's a completely different world. It's a completely different culture. Just like going from here over to China would be a different culture. And I didn't know how to reach it. But I had some experience in seminary with a friend who was a Young Life staffer. And then a guy here in Halifax County, Dave Snyder, cold called me one day and said, I want to start a Young Life chapter here in Halifax County. Will you help me? And as soon as he did, I knew that's what we need to do. So that's really why I got involved in Young Life, and that is why Faith Community Church is a big supporter of Young Life to this day.
Hey guys, what makes you excited about Wildlife Club?
I like talking about the Bible and talking about God and getting to hang out with friends and play a bunch of different games.
I like when we go to Wildlife. Yeah, we do get to play with our friends, but I like being able to be with my friends and talk about the Bible. I mean, we haven't been able to go to church a lot because of COVID, so it really does help.
I like the concept. I like the unique aspect where there's more one-on-one with you, Matt, and your folks and the kids, and you integrate the playing and the activities along with that. You're never wrong in teaching the gospel, no matter how you do it. But when you integrate that for 12-year-old boys that are active and they want to play, but then you take the time, if you guys take the time after that to preach the gospel and talk about God, that's a huge. It's encouraging. It's exciting about where they're at. The wildlife we were talking about before, the wildlife program, it's huge in this community. Matt, I know you're on the other side of this camera. You've done an amazing job with the kids in our community, and especially our 2 boys. The extra time that you take to come over to the house and to spend time with them, play with them, and to keep it all inspired by their faith and their path in the Bible. I mean, that's huge. That's huge for Monica and I, as we're working every day. And you don't give up on these kids. You're a true testament to your faith in God, and you're instilling that in the kids, and along with what we do here at home, and we appreciate that. Great program. I encourage everybody to get involved into it.
Oh, hey, sorry. I was just practicing some juggling that I've always personally wanted to learn, but a high schooler just taught me how to juggle this past fall. Guys, isn't it amazing to learn something from somebody and build a relationship at the same time? That's what we are all about. Young Life is a relational ministry that loves kids and earns the right to be heard. So when they share the greatest love story with them, that Jesus Christ came to earth and died for them so that they can have a right relationship back with the creator of the universe. Y'all, Young Life has been in Halifax County for 11 years. God has been bringing together groups of people that has built a support system and trained leaders to go out into the community to build these relationships with teenagers and show them who this Jesus is, that he pursues them and wants them to have a right relationship with him so that they can live for eternity together. Y'all, this past year has been tough on us all, but ministry has not stopped. We still have relationships with kids. Hundreds are known by name and are pursued by leaders weekly. We still have our events, club, and campaigners. And club is still like a party with a purpose. Campaigners is still a discipleship group going deeper into what it means to live a life with Jesus. We took middle schoolers to the Great Wolf Lodge, what we call Fall Weekend, last fall, and the relationships that were built there with leaders and kids are still there today, get even stronger. Those relationships are being fostered by having a relationship with Jesus. We have volunteers that are pursuing and building relationships with high schoolers for our Young Life ministry. And that is growing, and the relationships there are going deeper and deeper in the Word. We take high schoolers to summer camp and Fall Weekend. Yes, it didn't happen this past summer or fall, but we still anticipate to take kids on trips like this in the future. We have high schoolers and middle schoolers who want to serve their community. And they've been doing that by sending notes to people in the community. They are starting a food drive for this fall and winter season. Our vision for the future is to have ministry at every high school and middle school in Southern Virginia. This past February, we had an interest meeting in Mecklenburg County, and there is interest to start Young Life at Bluestone High School. After that, we hope to move ministry into the other high school and other middle schools. In Halifax County, we hope to start ministries every 2 years, reaching every demographic, reaching more lost kids. And these ministries are like Capernaum, a ministry for people with special needs, and Young Lives, a ministry to teen moms. We love to build relationships that last a lifetime. We love to go out and share the gospel in terms that teenagers can understand. If you are somebody that is like that has a heart for teenagers, and that loves and follows Jesus, please let us know, and we will share with you in ways that you can get involved to help spread the love of Jesus and keep Young Life in Halifax County for years to come.
Hi, my name is Brian Summerall. I'm the Director of Ministry Strategy for Young Life. I've been on staff for 33 years, and I get the privilege of telling you how Young Life got started. Well, it was 1939, and a pastor named Clyde Kennedy in Gainesville, Texas, hired a young seminary student named Jim Rayburn. He said, "Jim, don't monkey around with the kids who come to church. I'll take care of them. You just go hang out at that high school over there." Nothing suited Jim better, as he loved hanging out in the world of high school kids. Soon he was meeting with a group of high school kids he'd met in the pastor's study every Sunday night to pray for their friends to come to Young Life Club. Around the circle they were praying, and somebody prayed for Burr Nichols, the captain of the football team. Jim writes in his journal that at the end of that prayer, a little blonde beauty queen piped up and said, "I'll get Burr." She was going steady with him and said she'd have him at the next meeting. Well, the next Young Life Club meeting was in this house, and there were 70 plus people crammed in the big front hall of this house, and Jim Rayburn is smashed up against the front door because it's the only place to stand. They've done the songs, they've done the skits, they've done the announcements, and Jim's about to give the gospel message. All of a sudden, the door opens up behind Jim. He steps aside, and in walks the little blonde beauty queen like she owns the place. And in slumps in Burr Nichols, looking totally out of place. They sit down at Jim's feet because that's the only place to sit on the floor. Jim recalls Burr hadn't seen any of the skits, hadn't heard the announcements or any of the songs or anything. He said, "I gave the gospel the best I could. I was shaking in my boots." But there was something about it that Burr liked. Because at the end of the meeting, Burr stood up and said, "Boy, Jim, I like that, and I'm coming back next week." Well, the next week started out the same. 70 kids crammed up in the big front hall of the house. Jim smashed up against the front door. They've done the songs, they've done the skits, they've done the announcements, and Jim looks down and sees the little blonde beauty queen, but no Burr Nichols. And he thinks, oh no, they've had a divorce this week. But all of a sudden, he says that the awfulest clomp, clomp, clomp came across the front porch. And Burr Nichols opens the front door and Jim steps aside and Burr walks in like he owns the place. And he says, "Boy, Jim, I'm sorry. I wouldn't have been late, but I couldn't find some of these guys." And 4 teammates came trailing in behind him. Jim writes that Burr closed in on the gospel the 5th night he ever heard it. But later that fall, he was riding back from Dallas, Texas to Gainesville after seeing a football game, and he was killed in a car accident. Burr's parents asked Jim to preach the funeral because they said, "You were the only preacher he ever listened to." Jim writes that Burr was a regular ruffian who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, and all the Lord was waiting for was somebody to get a little bit interested in Burr. A little blonde beauty queen and a little pipsqueak theological student. Burr was a precious soul for whom the Lord died. He writes, "This country is full of people like that. This country is full of people that no Christian has ever said a kind word to." Then he says, "Most of the kids in our nation are like that." And just like Burr Nichols, they never heard the story. And he finishes with, "And I can't stand that." My question to you tonight, who's your Burr Nichols? Who has God tugging on your heart that they need to have somebody stepping into their world that will share the good news of Jesus Christ with them? Is it the kids in this community? Jim writes that all the Lord was waiting for was somebody to get a little bit interested in Burr, a little blonde beauty queen and a little pipsqueak theological student. And we can provide the pipsqueak theological student, but maybe God is tugging on your heart tonight to say, just like the blonde beauty queen, I'm in. I'll get Burr. I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of reaching kids in this community. And just like the little blonde beauty queen partnered with Jim Rayburn and they reached Burr Nichols, and then Burr Nichols partnered with them, and then 4 more teammates came trailing in, and then that club grew to 100 to 150 all across the country, to now Young Life is in over 100 countries. Because of people like you and that little blonde beauty queen who say, I'm in. Tonight, we hope you're just like Jim Rayburn when you hear about kids who aren't hearing the gospel. You think, I can't stand that. And you want to partner with your Young Life staff and volunteers. Because you know those Young Life leaders and volunteers might be the only preacher those kids ever listen to.
Ever since the first Young Life Club, Jesus has been proclaimed. That rings true here in Halifax County. Our founder, Jim Rayburn, said that Young Life isn't just about Jesus, but Jesus is all that Young Life is about. We aren't able to do what Young Life does without you. Every individual, every church that supports us, I want to thank you. There are teenagers who have found home churches in Halifax and through the state that attend those churches, serve in those churches, serve in their community. And there are teenagers that graduate high school and go to college and become leaders and help disciple other teenagers and help them start a relationship with Jesus. And it couldn't have been done without you. So thank you, thank you, there is a link that will send you to a response card where you can tell us how you would like to support the efforts in Halifax County through Young Life. Please take time to fill that out, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Have a great night.